Hey everyone, Max with BuzzTox here, and this video is brought to you by Squarespace. It's an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. But I'll talk about them later. Let's get into the video. So we finally watched the finale of Game of Thrones, and while I think it answered a lot of questions, I think it left a lot of questions to be answered. A lot of characters have come full circle with their plot that's been heavily prophesized throughout the show, but we also got a lot of great tidbits on what will happen to these characters in the future. So let's start with Daenerys. Since season 1, Daenerys was known as the Conqueror. She takes what is hers with fire and blood, and her key goal was to take what is hers and to sit on the Iron Throne. And over time, Daenerys started justifying her actions because she was right, she was good, and she has to do what's necessary to build a better world. And I think she has such high faith in herself, it pushed her a little too far. Her telling Jon that she knows what's good and anybody else who thinks they know what's good is wrong, I think that was a huge factor that pushed Jon to kill Daenerys, because she's trying to impose her will onto other people. And we've seen this since the beginning. We see her walk in the throne room in the destruction of King's Landing, that she ended up creating. The first time she saw this prophecy, the throne was just out of her reach, and she decided to go after her children, her dragons. But this time around, she finally had a moment with the throne, and she was able to touch it, the very throne that her father sat upon. But moments after, she was killed by Jon Snow, never really getting to sit the throne and rule the Seven Kingdoms. And I thought this was interesting, because last time she decided to turn away from the throne to rescue her children. But this time around, it was her child who came to save her. Drogon came and burned the Iron Throne, the very thing that pushed Daenerys to the edge and led her to this position. And then he ended up taking Daenerys somewhere safe. And we know, according to Sam, that Drogon is heading east, back to where Daenerys belongs, where she's loved and people respect her. But another thing we learn is Sam is interrupted when Sam says that Drogon is taking Daenerys to Volantis. But the key about that location is that's where the Red Temple of Volantis is. And we already met the High Priestess of the Red Temple of Volantis, and that's Kinvara. She has control over all the Red Priests and Priestesses in Essos. And she completely supports Daenerys. She believes that Daenerys was here to purify the non-believers. We also know that Melisandre went to Volantis in Season 7. And while she came back and died in Winterfell while setting a couple of things on fire, we didn't really get a conclusion on why she went to Volantis in the first place. Melisandre's key mission was to bring ice and fire together, and she was successful. Maybe she went to the Red Temple of Volantis to speak to Kinvara, because they knew what the Lord of Light had in store for the Mother of Dragons. So Daenerys' end could be two things. Drogon could take her to Volantis to be worshipped, loved, and buried amongst the people who love and respect her in the world that she shaped and helped liberate. Or she could be resurrected. We know Melisandre resurrected Jon. There isn't any reason to believe why Kinvara can't resurrect the Mother of Dragons. And maybe Daenerys can live the rest of her days not as a conqueror or a liberator, but just as a mother to Drogon. But all in all, just like her vision in the House of the Undying, she's returning back to the people who loved her, her family. And that also raises questions to the reason of Drogon burning the Iron Throne. Maybe it was because he's intelligent. Drogon knows that that's what Daenerys was after, and he blames the throne for Daenerys' defeat. We know dragons are smart enough to know an ally. We see that with Tyrion. Maybe Drogon was smart enough to realize that the Iron Throne resulted in the death of his mother. Or it can feed into the idea that Bran is playing a deeper Game of Thrones than we thought. He will never walk again, but he will fly. He could fly in the eyes of a dragon. Maybe it wasn't Drogon burning the Iron Throne, maybe it was Bran, destroying the relic of power that's resulted in the wheel that crushes over the rich and the poor, really carving out his place to be king. And he already has a seat on wheels anyway. He doesn't need a throne. But all in all, if Daenerys was going to be resurrected, it would have to be for a purpose. But with her story, we will never know an answer. But we have seen Jon Snow's resurrection, and we can look at what his purpose was. Why the Lord of Light brought him back. And I think a lot of the reason Jon came back is because of what and who he is. Jon is fire and ice. He's the Targaryen heir to the throne. But most importantly, he's the shield that guards the realms of men. Naturally, because Jon is a bridge between everything, he ends up protecting men, women, and children. He's fire and ice. He's life and death. He's Targaryen and he's Stark. He's the old gods and the Lord of Light. He's an illegitimate bastard, but he's also a legitimate Targaryen. And it's these dualities that allow Jon to make the world a better place, because all he does is bring peace between people, like the wildlings and the crows, Daenerys and her army to the Starks. and then he tried to rescue a white to make peace between all of Westeros. So while Jon's brought peace between a lot of people, and he helped bring people together to defeat the Night King and Cersei, his last true thing that he did of significance was killing Daenerys Targaryen. And Jon realizes this because love is the death of duty, and his adopted father Ned Stark went through the same thing. He was honorable to a fault, but it was his love for Jon Snow as a child and his sister Lyanna that resulted in him breaking his honor.
If the day should ever come when your Lord Father was forced to choose between honor on the one hand and those he loves on the other, what would he do?
The honor.
Is that you?
You do whatever was right, no matter what.
Then Lord Stark is one man in 10,000. What is honor compared to a woman's love? And what is duty against the feel of a newborn son in your arms?
Whereas Jon's experience was very similar. His love for his sisters led him to kill Daenerys. He betrayed his honor as a Stark in everything that he is. And that's a part of the prophecy that Melisandre even stated.
You will betray the man serving you. You will betray your family. You will betray everything you once held dear. And it will all be worth it.
But it also works in the reverse. Jon killing his love Daenerys ensures that he can continue his duty as the shield that guards the realms of men, whether that's a free man, Lord Commander, or King beyond the wall. So Jon's ending at this point can go multiple ways. For a while, Jon has always fought for the living, but now it might be time for him to fight for his own life. Enjoy himself, enjoy the freedom that he has. And we see grass growing over the wall, and it's a time of prosperity. And he can spend his time at Castle Black or over the wall with friends like Tormund and Ghost. It was the Six Kingdoms that sent Jon to Castle Black. But now the Six Kingdoms are almost worlds away because they're separated by now the separate kingdom, the North. So who knows in the future how regulated Castle Black will even be? How long will the Six Kingdoms be sending cripples, bastards, and broken things to the Night's Watch? Especially since there's nothing to defend anymore. So that's where Jon could fulfill a more substantial role. The wildlings and Tormund were following him because Jon was leading everyone through the long night. Jon could take a Mance Rayder role as an elected king beyond the wall, as well as Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Melisandre did say that Jon would be king. Maybe Jon could make his own kingdom beyond the wall. So all in all, looking at Jon's story, I kind of agree with it, but I think the execution of his character could have been done better. I think Jon not killing the Night King was a mistake. I think Jon should have been the shield that guards the realms of men, and as being a Stark, a Targaryen, fire and ice, he should have rid the world of fire and ice. He should have killed the Night King, which is ice, and then he should have killed fire, which is Daenerys. And as a servant to the realm, killing the world of two extremes, he would then take the black and live his life free beyond the wall. But I think Bran knew that this is where his brother Jon would be happiest. So that takes us to King's Landing. And now it's under Bran's rule, who is Bran the Broken, king of the Six Kingdoms. And what we realize is that Bran knew that he would be king. He saw the dragon over King's Landing. He knew Daenerys would destroy it. He even saw the destroyed Red Keep, the same one Daenerys saw in the House of the Undying. The only question I have is why did Bran spend so much time looking at Jon Snow's past? The fact that he was a Targaryen and a legitimate heir to the Iron Throne. Because he tells Jon that he was exactly where he needed to be. Maybe Bran knew that Jon needed to know his Targaryen past in order to kill Daenerys. To be able to compare himself to her leadership. And to realize that what's best for the world isn't Daenerys' rule. Now we can see that Bran was also ready because of how quickly he picked Tyrion as his hand. Just like we've been watching Tyrion for the last 8 seasons, so has Bran. He knows Tyrion's whole story and he knows why Tyrion is a significant part to rebuilding the Six Kingdoms. And these characters elected each other to power because they both make sense for the role that they're taking. In order to build a better world, a leader can't be chosen by blood. They have to be voted in. And that's great because Bran cannot have children. So Bran is the first point in history to build a new world. And after all this division and heartbreak, Bran is the keeper of stories. And stories between families bring people together. And Bran knows exactly why Tyrion's perfect to be Hand of the King. He served as a temporary hand to Joffrey. He was the hand of the queen to Daenerys, and now he's going to be the hand of the king to Bran for one simple reason. He always counseled peace to protect civilian life for the good of the realm, and he always checked his king or queen's worst impulses. He stopped Joffrey from acting rash. He stopped Daenerys from burning cities to the ground. He always counseled peace and prosperity. So Tyrion has a good heart, and his good heart has always gotten him in trouble with Daenerys. He lost her many of her armies, and some of her dragons. But even though that didn't work for Daenerys, that's exactly what the Six Kingdoms and Bran needs right now. Someone who has a good heart. And if Tyrion missteps and doesn't see something because of his big heart, Bran has the ability to see it, while Tyrion handles the political games inside the kingdoms. But I'm sure he'll find time to make his own wine Imp's Delight. But that takes us to the council that's going to build this new world. Bronn is now Master of Coin and Lord of the Reach. And Master of Coin is hard to swallow, but I guess his character makes sense. He started off as just a sellsword, and he managed to become Lord of the Six Kingdoms. So if you want to put your faith in somebody to build wealth, I would look to Bronn, because what he's accomplished in the last 8 seasons is very impressive. And Bronn is there for a reason, because Bran knows his story. Bran has seen what Bronn has done, and how he's fought for Jaime and how he's fought for Tyrion. And the same goes for Davos, who's now the master of ships. He's an amazing smuggler, and he understands more about ships than anyone at this point. And Davos is very significant, and he's playing out that role. Melisandre kept him alive because, for one, he was able to get Jon's support, which allowed him to become King of the North, rally support to fight the White Walker threat. But now he's remaking the world, with Bran the Broken as king. And then we go to Jon's best friend, Sam, who's become the Grand Maester. And I think he's proven himself to be a Maester because he has a lot of real-world experience. His knowledge doesn't come just from books. And I think Sam is exactly where he wants to be, especially since he has Gilly there, little Sam, and his soon-to-be baby-to-be-born. And then finally there's Brienne, who is now the first female Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and she's also the first female knight. But after all that, we know that some roles still need to be filled. There needs to be a Master of Laws, Master of Whispers, which would replace Varys from Season 1, and a Master of War. I kind of thought it would be nice to have, instead of a Master of War, a Master of Peace, but I guess we'll never know. But finally we go on to the Stark in the North, Sansa. She was able to provide freedom to the North as an independent kingdom. So she has completely changed her history, and the laws of the North are probably going to work very different than the Six Kingdoms. The Six Kingdoms now vote on a ruler. It's not based on blood. But I think the North will be different. I think the next person who becomes king or queen in the North will be one of Sansa's children. And hopefully Jon will be able to go down and visit. But then finally there's Arya, and she established that she is not a lady. That's why she's not living in Storm's End with Gendry. And she's going to be going west of Westeros. And Arya is one of those characters who I think her story is just beginning. And she'll find a lot of things that haven't even been introduced into the show yet. But that's my opinion on how some of our characters have ended and what it looks like for them in the future. Please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Now, it's time to talk about Squarespace. As I said, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to build a strong online presence and business. The first aspect of building an online identity is getting started, and Squarespace makes it possible. You can purchase your online domain straight from Squarespace, and then you can get started. Build your website using a vast selection of modern templates that have been designed to be intuitive, efficient, and appealing. On top of that, it's important for me as a content creator to promote my personal content and maintain communications with my audience. Squarespace allows you to create background visuals to the website by adding a video of your choice, or if the background isn't enough for you, you can place videos from YouTube, Vimeo, or any other service. You can also pull content from your social media, like Twitter and Instagram, and it's flexible in any page, sidebar, or foot of your website. To try this out, go to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/BuzzTox to save 10% off your first purchase. Thank you for listening, but until next time, I'll see you guys later.